Hi guys, what's up? Welcome to another What's Up Wednesday. I don't know if it's just gonna be this week's video or if it's gonna be a couple videos coming up in the next week, but I'm very open about my disability with both my friends and everybody. So, and I don't like the word disability, but that's how most people view it, as a disability, and in some ways it is very disabling, but in other ways it gives me an advantage above the average person. So I have two main disabilities. I mean, like, I have a bunch of other things that are disabilities, but they're not as prominent as my two main ones. And the one goes away as, it's not a myth, it does go away with age and maturity. So today I'm going to start out by doing this. We're also going to have this going. So what I might do is I might have us up in the corner here, actually. Sorry, just doing some minor adjustments. We're going to look up the definition of each of my disabilities. So we're going to put that down there. At least the two that I want to talk about, and then we're going to go into what it's like living in the brain of a person with the different disabilities. So this is why the internet is great. Okay, well, we're just going to have to look up what is a and then I want you guys to watch the ADHD simulator as well, which we will watch later. And there are a bunch of different ones, so we can watch a couple depending on how long this video goes. Okay, ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Is a complex mental health disorder that can affect your child's success at school and their relationships. The symptoms of ADHD vary and are sometimes difficult to recognize. ADHD is generally diagnosed in children by the time they are teens. Now, I lucked out. Hold on, I want to see my face on camera. So I lucked out, and I had an awesome kindergarten teacher who recognized the symptoms and recognized that there was a problem. Which, if your child's teacher says that they think that the child has a disability, it's not as an insult. It's never intended to be an insult. It's intended to help the child succeed. Because, yes, well, it can single out the child for bullying and stuff, to be like that, to be labeled with a disability. It does actually help. Being one of the people who got diagnosed early, it allows the child, if you allow, like, if your kid was, like, say, in kindergarten, it does allow the child to adapt to that, which therefore then makes that child better at dealing with said bullying. And for me personally, I just accepted it as a fact of life that people just don't accept your disability. That doesn't mean that they don't have to accept you, and you can change that if you know. So the other one that I have that I recently got diagnosed with was Asperger's syndrome. Which I still can't spell. All through my childhood, we, me and my dad, well, my dad mostly, and then I, after I figured this out, thought that there wasn't just ADHD there, because for me personally, I had outbursts, and, well, that's common for most boys with disabilities. They grow out of it, whereas mine kept getting worse, I feel. So, on that note, Asperger's syndrome, a developmental disorder related to autism and characterized by higher than average intellectual ability, coupled with impaired social skills and restrictive, repetitive patterns of interest and activity, which is me in a nutshell. So, what that basically means is that with ADHD, I guess my sister's boyfriend described it best. It's like the way that your brain functions. It's like, I guess, how people would describe being high all the time. You have that inability to pay attention, but you also have that wonder and awe of the world. And everything is so distracting and new, regardless of whether you've been in that situation all the time or not. With ADHD, I pick up on everything. So even though, like, you guys can't really hear it that well, I don't even know. Hold on. So the gain is at the G. I want you to listen to what's surrounding me. Washing machine. I have it turned down usually so you guys can't hear it as clear, but even though it's quieter, I can still hear it just as clear as I can hear myself and the buzz in the background. So that's the thing with ADHD. It gives you that heightened sense, which in a survival situation is not a disability. It also as well increases your intelligence. But the way that I look at a disability, like ADHD, Asperger's, something like that, where your intelligence is like higher than average, but your social skills or some other thing is lacking, like your attention span, is because if you look at it this way. So, do I have the screen on? I don't even have the screen on. Do I? I have myself here. See, that's the thing. I forgot about that completely. Look at that. So right there it says higher than average intellectual ability, but it's also coupled with impaired social skills and restrictive repetitive patterns of interests and activities. And the origin of the word, named after Hans Asperger's, the Australian physicist who described the condition in 1914. Now, Asperger's is also described as higher functioning autism. Now, the way that it works is that it's like, what was I saying? There's ADHD. There it goes. Train of thought. Okay, the way that Asperger's works, it's like being autistic some of the time and then being normal the other time. But for me, because I have ADHD, I'm autistic or I'm ADHD. Which a lot of kids grow out of the HD part of ADHD, so the hyperactivity part. And I feel like, and yes, if you're curious as to whether or not I'm on medication, yes, but you cannot go on medication for Asperger's. Asperger's is more of an emotional thing, whereas ADHD, the medication you go on is for more of a attention thing. So most kids usually are on the medication when they're in school and then they go off of it. But me personally, I kind of need it for my job, which is okay. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with that. There are tons of people who are on medication for different things. I mean, like, ideally someday, when I was little, it was always that ideally someday I'd be off my medication, which I hopefully can work towards someday. But if that day is not today, that's okay. I would have to work on gaining control in the evenings. Now, my medication, with any medication, was an adjustment period when I was in school. So there was often times where my medication was too low or my medication was too much. So when ADHD medication is basically a stimulator. So it's like coffee. Coffee is a drug. Coffee is caffeine, right? Unless you get decaf, which I really don't see the point to decaf because it doesn't taste the same. Anyway, so like with the stimulator stuff, any kind of stimulator, like, one of the myths of the medication that I think is kind of true, but kind of not, is that with any stimulant, God, I can't even English right now, any stimulant will somewhat inhibit growth, but not by much. I mean, like, the medication that I was on was good. When I started on medication, I did start on Ritalin, and I had to take it at school, and the peanut butter really doesn't help. Ritalin is the worst one you can go on. If your doctor recommends Ritalin, your doctor's recommending death for your child. There are complications along with Ritalin that are bad. So you need to talk to your doctors. If you're watching this and you're a parent and your child has a disability. Also know that it's not the end of the world, because a lot of us with disabilities are amazing. Famous we're gonna look this up. Hold up, we're gonna make this smaller. I want you to look at this list. Do I have food on my face? Oh my gosh, I have food on my face. Either that or my face is peeling. My arm is peeling. Did it stop peeling? No, there's still a little bit of flaky flake going on. See, that's another thing with ADHD. You can go about like, and you not even realize it. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go back and go and see what the other one was. This is why we open new tabs, so we don't have to sit and wait forever and ever. Open link and new tab. There we go. But as soon as I'm done looking at this, we are going to we're gonna look at that ADHD stimulator. I'm not sure if it was Albert Einstein was on the list. I'm pretty sure Albert Einstein was on. Oh, no. We're not doing a flip thing. Go away. Also, Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory is the poster child for Asperger's. So the way that he can function normally, he's intelligent, he's brilliant. Now, I don't know as much about Asperger's syndrome as I do about ADHD, because all my life I've always thought it was just ADHD. Okay, so here are a list of famous people in history with ADHD. So, architect Frank Lloyd Wright. I'm not sure if that's one of the Wright brothers, but who else but that person sitting in class that you think is stupid would think that, oh, hey, I can fly. No, they aren't stupid. They're a genius. They just have... Anyway, what I was trying to say was the way that I was going to explain the way that these disabilities work, and the way that most people need to start thinking about them, is that when you have your computer and you load it up with a bunch of stuff, what happens? Your computer goes slow. So, with stuff, like a good example is Down syndrome. There are Down syndrome people who can't talk, and there are Down syndrome people who can talk. Do you know what Down syndrome is? Down syndrome is an extra chromosome, which if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to go into it, but the reason why these people are disabled is because their brain can't handle the extra chromosome. Now, if you know someone with Down syndrome who can talk, you're looking at a genius, because the body is not supposed to be able to even handle that extra chromosome. And while they may not seem like a genius by normal person standards, the fact that they can talk makes them a genius, because they can handle the extra chromosome and they can talk. I've been friends with many different people with many different disabilities, some of them Down syndrome, some of them other things like Asperger's, autism. A lot of my friends in school were all had disabilities, and we were all singled out. So what did we do? We grouped together. None of these people were as stupid as everybody kept thinking that they were. We would literally sit in that hall and discuss. Now, those of you who don't know what Doctor Who is, Doctor Who is a time-traveling Time Lord. We would look, from the planet Gallifrey. He has 2 hearts. He looks like a human, but they also regenerate and stuff. And I can get into like different fandoms that I'm into in another video. But I would like to explain to you one thing that we would sit there and we would talk about, that most of those students who were in like calculus and like, what is the other one, biology and stuff, wouldn't even comprehend. We would sit there and we'd talk about how the TARDIS would work, how warp drive would work, Star Trek, how hot the laser would have to be in order for there to be something like a lightsaber, stuff like that. We'd sit there and we'd discuss the ability to time travel. We'd sit there. I remember one conversation specifically where we talked about, I don't know what the effect is called, but it's, you know, like when you go back and you do something and then you're stuck in a time loop. If you would go back in time, which is a dangerous time traveling, we literally sat there for the, I don't know how long the lunch hour is, but we literally sat there and talked about that kind of stuff, argued about how to fix it, if it's possible to even fix it. Well, most of us went to our next classes and got made fun of because either A, we had a laptop, or B, we were slower at reading or writing or whatever it was. So, to those of you who made fun of both me and my friends and anybody else with a disability, let that sink in. We were talking essentially about quantum physics during some of our lunch periods, and while some of you are going off to study that stuff, we had an understanding of it just verbally. We may not be able to do the math to figure out how time travel works, but I watched a program about how time travel could theoretically be possible, and I'm just like, we talked about that in our lunch group, as I called it, about how the TARDIS would travel along a spiral pattern along the outside of the TARDIS, or not the outside of the TARDIS, time vortex. So, well, we may have a disadvantage. We are 10 times smarter than the average person, or whatever the times is. Anyway, on to like the list of ADHD people, which a lot of our group was ADHD or autism or Asperger's or something along that line. So, architect Frank Lloyd Wright, the guy who invented one of the guys who invented the planes, Pablo Picasso, Vincent van Gogh, I don't know how to pronounce Salvador's last name. Athletes, Terry Bradshaw, Michael Phelps, Pete Rose, Nolan Ryan, Michael Jordan, Jason Kidd, authors Charlotte and Emily Bronte, Samuel Clemens, Emily Dickens, Edgar Allan Poe, the guy who wrote The Raven, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Robert Frost, George Bernard Shaw, Henry David Thornton, Leo Tolstoy. Oh, there are a lot of people on this list. Composers, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And those of you who know me know that I love my music, especially Mozart. Okay, Bill Gates is on here, Henry Ford, Michael Forbes, I don't know who Carnegie is, Ted Turner, the name sounds familiar, explorers, Christopher Columbus. America would not be America without ADHD. That inability to sit still, that urge to explore. Be thankful. Lewis and Clark as well, entertainers, Anne Bancroft, Jim Carrey. Now, as far as I know, he has never confirmed it, but I'm pretty sure when you're sitting around going, that you're probably ADHD, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. But if you don't want to be open about it, that's your choice. Jack Nicholson, Steve McQueen, Ty Pentington, Elvis Presley. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Evel Knievel and Robbie Knievel, Sylvester Stallone, Rambo, Robin Williams, obviously the Wright brothers, inventors. So you would not have Alexander Graham Bell. You would not have this without ADHD. Because when you have ADHD, you are labeled ADHD. Your brain works differently. There's practically nothing you can do to fix that. You can fix the inattention, you can fix all this other stuff, but you can't fix the fact that you're ADHD. Thomas Edison. So let's see what happens without Thomas Edison. You get the reflection from my screen. You wouldn't even have a screen probably, because you wouldn't have the light. Benjamin Franklin. Okay, Thomas Edison would be nothing without Ben. Okay. Photographers, physicist, Albert Einstein. Why the heck do you think he had his tongue out all the time? Because he just didn't care. John F. Kennedy. I know he was assassinated, but he made strides towards change. Okay? A lot of people with disabilities, another advantage of having a disability is we have the most compassionate hearts ever. Okay? Think about that. So I'm gonna go to YouTube. This is gonna be like, I'm gonna end this here, essentially. But actually, we'll just put it in the bottom. I want you to watch the ADHD simulator that I'm gonna pick for you guys. And I want you to, do this one simple thing for me. Tell me how many questions and answers you got correct. Thank you for watching this Wednesday video. I will go into part 2 next week of this Inside My Brain series. And I will explain how and what specifically my brain does. So now that you understand at least a little bit from my perspective how these disabilities work, if you're still in high school or still in school, don't judge that person with a laptop just because they have a laptop. That doesn't mean that they're retarded or whatever. 9 times out of 10, if it's anything like our group of friends in high school, we're sitting there in the hall talking about how stupid it is that you don't understand this concept. Well, we still don't understand how to read and write. Some of us. As I've said before, just keep this in mind when you're looking at that person with a disability. Think about this. You cannot have 5 bajillion songs on your computer without compensating speed. So therefore, you cannot have this intense intelligence without compensating for something else. With Asperger's, it is emotions. With ADHD, it is attention. Think about it that way. Anyway, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you have a disability, why not just make your own series about it? We need to be more open about this stuff, in my opinion, personally, because if you stop making this thing so taboo, it'll become normal everyday happenings. You know? Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video before this runs into a complete half hour. Bye bye.